Hey all, welcome back to one more session today. So, in today's session, we are going to talk about something important within randomization, which is constrained randomization. So, in the yesterday's session itself, we have talked about a little bit about this constraint randomization. Like, why do we need constraints in randomization? Okay, so now coming to today's session, we are going to talk why do we need these constraints and also what are the types of constraints within randomization, like how can you write a constraint and how many ways you can write these constraints. There are many ways to write the constraints. Okay, so we will be talking about all about these constraints one by one in these sessions. So, before going into this video, if you are new to this channel, consider subscribing this channel and hit on the notification bell also. Also, if you after seeing this full length video, if you like my video, please consider giving me a like, which is kind of motivation for me. And now coming to today's session, which is constraint randomization. Okay, before going into the specifications about what is this randomization, what is the constraint randomization and all, let me give you a small example like why do we need this constraint randomization? In what cases do we need these constraints? Okay, so for example, let us consider I am taking a address, a variable. Okay, for example, let us consider this is some 3-bit width. Okay, so my address is of 3-bit width. So since this is of 3-bit width, how many kind number of possibilities you can expect? Like 8 number of possibilities. Just I'm giving you a simple example so that you can connect with it, so that you could understand deeply why do we need constraints within randomization. Okay, so I am having some 8 possibilities, okay, for my address. So when I'm randomizing this address by using address dot randomize, okay, when I'm randomizing, when I'm calling the randomize method within my code, now what happens? Among these 8 possibilities, you will get one possibility. For example, let us consider among these 8 possibilities, my first random, when I have randomized it at once, now my possibility, now the value I got is for example 3. In this way, if I randomize it once again, okay, then the possibility may be 5. In similarly, then the possibility may be 8. So in this way, when you are how many times you are randomizing, those many times within these 8 possibilities you will be getting one value. Is it or not? This is about randomization. Now for example, for this same thing, for the same address, I am putting some limitation, like I only want the random values which are greater than 5. Okay, that means even though I'm having 8 possibilities, so greater than 5 means so 6, 7, 8. So these are the 3 random values I want. Okay, so how many times, if you are just randomizing it, how many times could you expect these possibilities can come? These values only can come. No, right? There is no such possibility like only these 3 values will be coming if you are randomizing it. Is it or not? Now, what you should do? You should put a limitation. You should write a constraint for it. So, in such a way that even though you are randomizing it for any number of times, you will get only this among values between 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so this is called constraint. Got my point? So this is what we will be writing in our code today. We are putting limitations. Okay, this is constraint. Like even though we are having any number of values, if we are thinking that okay, we need to have only specific values, only specific random values I need to get. So in such conditions, you will be going for constraints within randomization, right? So in order to write this constraint, we need to follow the syntax. So coming to the constraint block syntax, what does the constraint syntax consists of? So the constraint keyword, okay, and then some individual name for the constraints, any name. Okay, for this constraint you will be writing the name, and then within the flower braces you will be writing your limitation. Okay, for example, if you take this particular example here itself, now okay, this is my constraint keyword, and then my constraint name. Okay, and then for example, I'm taking in the previous example, just like we have talked. Okay, I'm taking the address. Okay, within this address, what is that? I'm writing it as within the flower braces, address greater than 5 semicolon. Okay, this is how the syntax should be. Within the flower braces, you can write any number of conditions you like, and then you should put the semicolon as an end, and then you should close the flower brace. Okay, now what happens? After seeing this constraint, then the simulator can understand, okay, I need to randomize the address value, but I need to give the values only which are greater than 5, because the limitation here is greater than 5. So for example, if this is of 3 bit, then that means 2 power 3, which are 8 possibilities, among which only 6, 7, 8 or the values that should be displayed according to this constraint. Got my point? So this is what constraint means. Constraint randomization means putting the limitation to your particular random values. Okay, if you want to have some specific values that are in your mind, okay, in order to randomize only those specific values, you will be using this constraints. Okay, so this is about constraint. So talking more about the constraints, as we have already seen that, okay, so everything we should be within. How many constraints, like limitations or conditions you want to write, you should be writing within this flower braces itself. And also, coming to the placement of this constraint, like when you are writing the constraint, you can either write this constraint within your class. Okay, for example, when you are writing a class, within this class itself you can mention your constraint. Okay, or else you can mention the constraint outside the class also. Okay, you can either write the constraint within the class or outside the class also. Okay, if you are writing within the class, it is just a constraint. If you are writing outside the class, then it is considered as external constraint block. Okay, right? So you can write it either inside or outside, but when you are writing it outside, it is considered as external constraint block, right? So this is about the constraints. And also, when you are naming the constraint, if you are taking some 5 to 6 constraints, every constraint should be having its individual name. Okay, so you should keep that in consideration. And also the syntax is mandatory, like after before completing the ending flower brace, you should keep the semicolon to put to mention that that is the end of my condition. Okay, you can write any number of conditions you like. For every condition and you should be mentioning it with a semicolon. You should keep that in your mind. Okay, so this is your constraint block. Now, okay, so this is the syntax, like, right? Now again, within constraints, as I told you, you will be having many kinds of constraints. You can write any number of constraints, and also you can write in different ways. Like for example, this is the one way, constraint inside. Okay, you can write the constraint by using this particular inside syntax. Okay, so the inside block is written with inside keyword. By using the inside keyword within the flower braces, you can write the constraint. Or else you can write the constraint within the constraint. Within this particular flower brace, you can use inside keyword, or you can use if else conditions, or you can use conditional statements. You know about these conditional statements operators, right? So you can write it in conditional statements or if else blocks in any number of, or you can either use some many other things like conditionals, implication operators. Okay, or else you can use distance keywords in order to know the weightage of that particular constraint, right? We'll all be discussing about all these things, don't worry about that. Okay, so these are different kinds of ways you will be writing your constraints. So one among that is constraint inside. Okay, so this is the basic way to write a constraint. Okay, so the basic way is by using inside keyword. Okay, again in this inside keyword you will be having lots of ranges. Okay, so let us see one by one here. Okay, to specify range of values, in order to specify, like if you see here, okay, let me explain this as an example for you. So this is constraint name. Okay, so within the constraint name you will be writing variable inside this particular thing. Okay, now if you are, this is variable. For example, if you are taking in the previous thing, if we have discussed rand, okay, some bit, some 4 down to 0, let us consider 4 down to 0. okay, address. So this is my declaration of my variable. So here the variable is nothing but address. Okay, address inside 10 down to 20. That means whenever you are randomizing this particular address, it will be producing the values only within 10 and 20 itself. Okay, so based on this, for example, if you are taking this as some 7 down to 0, that means it is of 8 bits, so 2 power 8. Okay, combinations you will be getting. So among these 2 power 8 possibilities, only the values between 10 and 20 possibilities will only be randomized. Okay, so that is in order to randomize within range of values, to specify within the range, that means between 10 and 20 values. Okay, to specify set of values, for example, you only want to randomize these three values itself. That means whenever you are whenever you are doing the randomization on this particular variable, okay, only among these three values the value should be randomized. That means either it should be 40 or 70 or 80, or 40 or 70 or 80. So how many times you repeat, only these three values will be displayed. That means when this is the case only when you need specify set of values, only when you want to randomize set of values, then it is in this method. Okay, now combination of both. Okay, you can do both of this at once. Like if you see here, if you want only set of values and then within the range. So here 4, 7, 8 among these three values you need, or between 10 and 20, or 25, 30, 40 to 70. In this way you can mix and match both this range of values and set of values also. Okay, so these are the kinds that you can write. So everything is written within inside by using the inside keyword. That means inside means inside this particular thing only the randomization value should be done. Okay, so now defined base range in constraint. That means by using the tick define, okay, we have seen this tick define compiler directives. Okay, by using the tick define you will be defining the range. Okay, and within that range you will be using this just like similar to this one. Okay, if you see this is similar to this one, but here you are giving the constant values, like 10 and 20 are constant values, they can't be changed. But here if you see here I am defining it. Start range and end range is nothing but I am defining the range. So instead of giving the constants I am giving the variable name, so that whenever I want to change this, whenever I am changing this variable's names, now the constant values will also be changing. Okay, just it is another way we can just think like that. Okay, by using the tick define compiler directive. Now variable based range in constraint. Okay, just similar to this range. Okay, like if you are using the variable range, variables means by using parameters. Okay, by using parameters you will be defining the variables, and based on the variables you will be also declaring this constraints. Okay, and similarly see here within the variables also again parameters, if you want to have the parameter range also you will be using this. And then inverted inside constraint. Inverted inside constraint means, for example, if you see here, when you are writing this constraint, what can you expect the output to be? The output should be within 10 and 20 values. Okay, now for the entire logic, if I am keeping this inversion symbol, then that means the value should not be between 10 and 20, but before 10 and after 20 any values you can randomize, but between these values the randomization should not takes place. That is what the inversion symbol is. Okay, so this is how the thing is taking place here. Now if you see here, let us see the code here so that it will be easily understood for you. So what I have done is I have written all this in one code itself. Okay, all these constraints in one code itself. You can pause this and try to check this video, try to check the output of this video, and if you are having any doubts on the output of this video you can ping me in the comment box. But as for now I am just going to explain this, okay, particular code. And if you want to have any if you want to get this code, if you want to execute this particular program, you can join my telegram channel. I have already uploaded this PowerPoint presentation there. Okay, you can just join there and you can download that particular code and you can just paste it on the EDA playground. Okay, so that you can just see the output of this, and if you have any doubts, as I told you, you can ping me. So now, okay, so here if you see tick define, I am defining some two variables, start range and end range, with values 35 and 45. Okay, then I am declaring the parameter. Okay, two parameters like p1 p2 are the two parameters. Okay, and both are of int data type, and I am giving the values here itself like 10 and 20. Okay, and then here if you see, I am writing the class item. Like if you see here, this is my class. Okay, you can either declare this parameter and class in two different lines, or you can just take these two in one line itself. Like when you are declaring the parameter, there are different ways to declare the parameter within class. You can declare it individually outside the class, or you can just declare it along with the class itself. Like if you see class item, sequence item, and hash. Okay, so this is my parameter. You can declare it along with class itself, or outside the class also you can declare. There are two ways to declare it, right? So this is my class sequence item. So along with this class sequence item, I am taking some 7 values. Okay, all are of 7-bit wide and all are of random bits. So that means all these variables can be randomized. Now coming to the constraint, like if you see here, this is my constraint keyword and this is my constraint name. Okay, every name should be individual to one another. Okay, so all these are my constraint names. So along with this, so variable name, so first is this variable value 1 inside. Okay, 10 and 20, that means whenever you're randomizing this particular value 1, then what will be displayed for percentage d? Only the values between 10 to 20. Between 10 and 20, what are the values that are present? Only those values are being randomized. That means when you are repeating it for 3 times, you could expect the output to be only between 10 and 20. Okay, that is the meaning of this constraint. Okay, now coming to the second constraint, which is 40, 70, 80. That means whenever you are randomizing it for 3 times in this particular thing, you can expect the values to be either 40 or 70 or 80. Only these things itself. Okay, either you can 40 can be repeated for 2 times and 70, or 40 can be repeated once, 70 for 2 times. In this way, anything. Okay, now if you want to check how the RAND-C will be working here, you can just give it as this particular value to as RAND-C instead of RAND. Then you can observe the difference between RAND and RAND-C here. Okay, that means when you are giving it as RAND-C, now what happens? Until 40, 70, 80 are written for one time, then only after completing all this for one random time, then only the repetition takes place. Okay, so this is about this RAND-C. Okay, this is the second one. Now coming to the third constraint, if you see mixing matching. So if you see, when you are randomizing this value 3, what happens? You can expect the values between 10 and 20, or 25 and 30, or 21, 33, 40, 70, 80. So all these values you can expect. You what you have to remember is that the value shouldn't outside this range. You don't get the values outside this particular range. Okay, so try to execute it so that you will understand it. Now coming to the fourth one, which is value inside 100 and 200, and this is of negation symbol. So now when you are randomizing this value for, what can you expect the values? You can expect any number of values, but the values should be within without this 100 and 200 range. That means you can get the output values which are below 100, like 90, 99, and which are above 200, like 211, 215, like that. But you can't expect the values between 100 and 200, like 108, 150. All these values are not existing when you are randomizing this particular thing. Why? Because this is of inverted range. That means this will be the actual thing, but I have done the inversion of this particular constraint. Okay, now coming to the fifth the value, okay, value 5 inside value 1 and value 2. So what is this value 1 and value 2? This is the range. Now what is the value 1? Value 1 is nothing but here 10 to 20 range. So that means here 10 to 20 range down to what is value to 40, 70, 80. So it is just like this mix and match thing. Okay, but you should remember that it should be between these values or these values. Okay, so that is this value 1 and value 2. Now coming to the value 6 constraint. So value 6 constraint is within start range and end range. Now what is the start range here? 35. What is the end range here? 45. So it should be between 35 and 45. Similar to this particular constant value based. But the thing is here, since it is constant, we can't change the values. But here, since this is the defined variation, so whenever you are changing the start range from 35 to 50, so here also it will be changing from 50. Okay, you should remember that, you should keep that in your mind. So it will should be within this start range and end range, similar to the constants, but it is defined based. Okay, and then now coming to the parameter inside. Okay, when you are coming for parameter, here p1 and p2, what are the p1 and p2 values? 10 and 20. So similarly 10 and 20. So basically, okay, everything, like if you see here, constant, parameter, and start range and end range both are same. All these are same, but the only difference is that when you are declaring the parameter and when you want to use that parameter, you will be writing the constraint with the parameter based range. And when you are declaring some defined constant and you want to use that, then you will be using defined based range. So in this way you will be using different kinds of things. So in this way you will be writing the constraint. Now if you see here, I have written all these constraints within the class. So if you see here, within the class and end class, I have written all these constraints. You can either write all these constraints within inside the class or outside the class also you can write the thing. Like here, outside the class, after completion of class also you can write the all these constraints, right? So now coming to the module. Now if you see here, everything is done. Here I am randomizing it for 3 times and I am getting the display values for all these items. Okay, here got it. So as I told you, try to execute this on the EDA playground, and if you are having any doubts on this particular program, you can ping me in any of my social media handles. So in the next class we are going to talk about if else, how we are going to write if else and constraints, and how we are going to write conditional operators within constraints. So all these things we are going to talk. So stay tuned for that, and if you like this video, please consider give me a small like. That is